Good afternoon. At Legends of Learning, we strive to be on the cutting edge of new game-based learning, or GBL, strategies, techniques, as well as bringing thought leaders together around critical topics in school. Today, we are here to do just that, explore a topic that is at the forefront of conversations in schools, districts, communities, equity, and inclusivity. Today's collaborative conversation brings together some powerful voices in education, especially when it comes to this specific topic. The conversation is meant to be just that, a sharing of ideas and a conversation on how video games in the classroom may be a solution to some of the challenges we all face. Intel released a survey in May that stated 47% of gamers don't play games they feel are made for them. So how does that fact impact education? Specifically, educational games. Video games themselves have been shown to have massive benefits when used with best practice in classrooms. The Entertainment Software Association recently shared findings that stated that video games create networks of creative play for students. It meets students where they are, which connects students to educational materials. It enhances problem-solving skills, enabling students to work within their systems and make meaningful choices. It helps teachers accommodate differentiated learning structures, providing students opportunities to engage with materials at their own speed and at their own pace. And it stimulates collaboration, promoting leadership and cooperation opportunities within their classroom and within the school and the larger community. Today, we'll explore the cross-section of the positive impact of video games and the importance of equity and inclusivity when using this powerful medium to educate our students. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion today, as I'm joined by some incredible leaders in education from across the nation to dig into this topic. Each of them has championed the idea of equity in their work, whether at the school district, working on national policy, or in the industry itself. As a panel, they will share some of the work being done by their organizations, and then we'll have a virtual open floor, the chat box, if you will, for some of your questions. As I introduce each panelist, I'm going to ask them a very important question, especially with us talking about video games. What video game character do you most relate to? So with us today, I'm joined by Shayla Wallace from KIPP New York City Public Schools. She's the Director of Science, Technology, and Engineering. Welcome, Shayla.
Hello, hello. So I'm answering the question. If you could tell about the background, it has to relate to Street Fighter, particularly number 2. And the video character, I would say Chun-Li. Chun-Li, she was the first female, I believe, first female fighting fighter in a game. She's a trailblazer, the only woman on the roster for a long time, and had the coolest move called the spinning bird kick. And so Chun-Li is who I would like to say I want to be like, and probably am like in my work, a trailblazer. I'm probably spinning bird kicking things in action in my work. And she was just graceful and strong and always joyful when she won a game. So Chun-Li.
Well, I love it, Shayla, and I will give you a little insight. My 8-year-old daughter likes to play Street Fighter, as she calls it, the game that she could beat daddy at because she uses Chun-Li. Disgraced. Okay. Next with me today, I have Kevin Gardner from Baltimore City Schools, who's the coordinator of science there. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here today. My favorite video character is, I'm the old school. I love Mario. Mario is hardworking. You saw him go through several different games through the different systems that they had out, and it's coming back and being popular again. So I love Mario.
I love it, Kevin. I just keep asking, why do they keep getting captured every single time? It's always getting captured. I think they'd figure that out by now. Next with me, I do have David Lockett. He's from the School of Applied Computational Sciences at Meharry Medical College. He's the Grant Proposal Development Specialist in K-16 Outreach and also a former Einstein Fellow. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Excited to join. I've got a different character for you. You know, we're all characters of, we love Marvel, we love DC, but I'm going to go with Miles Morales, Spider-Man. Why? He's got an aptitude for science. He's completely dedicated to learning something new, and it's Marvel. Why not? We've got all these Marvel characters here. That's my favorite. So I'm going to go with Miles Morales from Spider-Man. So
I love it, David. I love it. Miles is seriously a great character, and if you're Miles, then I might be that Peter Parker because I'm just as nerdy. So we're good there.
Thank you.
Next, we do have Tracy Staley. She's from Pinellas County Schools, and she is the K-5 STEM coordinator. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Jonathan, and hi to everyone. So I have a lot of favorite video game characters, but I really took it seriously when you said, who can we relate to? And so I fell upon Sonic the Hedgehog. And the reason for that is as I go through my life and I'm collecting coins, all of a sudden there always seems to be some unforeseen obstacle or expense that pops up and I lose all my coins. So then I run around frantically trying to retrieve what I can and then just keep moving forward.
Tracy, I think you have a book there that you're on the verge of, Philosophy of How Sonic the Hedgehog is Like Our Life. I love it. I love it. And finally, we do have Hannah Walden from code.org. She's the curriculum lead over there. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi, Jonathan. So I'm also going to go slightly old school, all the way back, I want to say 30 years, back to middle school. And I'm going to go with Carmen Sandiego, one of my first computer games that I loved playing. And I love, Carmen's got a great sense of fashion. And she's a woman of mystery. She gets to travel all over the world, causes a little bit of trouble, but she gets away with it. And she's well loved, I think, in her own way. So I love Carmen, and I think that's the person I'm going to go with.
I love it, Hannah, and I love the gets to travel all over the world. I don't know if it's getting to or just hiding, but I'll take it, and I'm with you on that. I like it. I like it. Well, welcome everybody. We're very excited for the conversation, and we're going to dive right in. So I'm going to start with you, Tracy. Your district has a track record for working towards providing all students equitable experiences to learn. With equity being such an important topic in education, most recently the challenges being highlighted again during this pandemic, how can technology help bring equity to learning?
Well, I think one of the biggest ways that technology can bring equity to learning really has to deal with the fact of how it increases accessibility. So we're at a point in time right now where with technology, students can have access to all of the same content. And then with that, with technology, students have all of this wealth of resources and information at their fingertips. So it's not like, when you and I were in school and you go to the library and you use the Dewey Decimal System and you cross your fingers and hope that there's a resource there that will pertain to what you're learning. Students can find information literally in a matter of seconds. Another thing about technology that I think is really just amazing is the fact that it allows teachers to expand learning beyond their four walls. So students can literally go anywhere. They can go to any location. We don't have to worry about permission slips and transportation and costs of field trips and things like that. And we know that those types of experiences and place-based learning are really critical to building background knowledge. And oftentimes, students who don't have the same experiences as others, they have limited background knowledge, and that background knowledge is really critical in moving forward with their learning. So with the access to virtual field trips, students are able to see things that they probably would not have been able to see before. And it's not just limited to virtual field trips. Think about all of the things that students can experience. They can explore planets. They can look at something as small as a cell. All of those things were quite difficult back in the past. There's virtual dissections, just, there's so many different digital resources out there. And with those resources, teachers can make learning personal, they can make it relevant, and the kids are getting to experience things firsthand, which is going to make it more meaningful for them. And I guess one other way is just increasing the different modalities in which students can express their learning. Not every student is a strong reader or a writer. Not every student enjoys writing a report. So with technology, we can think about personalizing education, allowing students to have some choice in the ways that they express what they know. They can, make an animated video, they can record a song, they can use any of the multiple presentation softwares that are out there. There's just so many options that students can really personalize their learning experiences and make it meaningful to them. And I think that when the learning is meaningful, that is really when it sticks with the kids. And ultimately, I think retention is one of the biggest things that we're working for.
No, I think you're spot on, Tracy. The access to some of the things that many students would never have access to, I think is such a strong, important point in the fact that it brings experiences, and we know that truly our students learn through experience. It brings those experiences to life for so many kids who would never have that opportunity. Our other panelists, any other thoughts on this and thinking about how you've seen technology, maybe in your districts or in your work, bring some equity to students?
Tracy, I love how you brought up the personalization. The personalization is so very important, especially as we're looking now at filling the gaps of learning, et cetera, that we do. And I was just wondering, what were, in your role, were some of the challenges that you saw with getting that lens to be for personalization?
I think one major barrier is not actually the kids, it's the teachers, and getting them comfortable with a new way of instruction, a new way of accepting work, and then also just being comfortable with different platforms and different forms of technology. We have, just like with our kids, we have a very wide range of experience with our teachers, and some of them are, dive in head first, let's do it, let's try it. Others are a little bit more apprehensive. So I think with the use of technology, another really big thing that districts need to be considerate of is the professional development they're going to present to their teachers and how they're going to support their teachers, not just throwing something out there and expecting teachers to figure it out on their own, which unfortunately does happen. But if we want our teachers to effectively use these new methods, we need to support them in facilitating them.
And David, I saw you unmute, or Shayla, do you have something?
No.
I can definitely add. But go ahead, Shayla.
What Tracy just said about districts supporting teachers and their professional development, I also think districts, there's so many different tech tools out there for teachers to use and make the classroom come to life for kids, and it can be very overwhelming. So I know what we did here at KIPP NYC during the pandemic to make sure that it wasn't overwhelming for teachers, parents, or students, that we focused on 2 platforms that we wanted to offer training on. That was Nearpod and Canvas. And so we spent a summer really as district leaders learning everything you need to know about Nearpod and Canvas, and then making sure that we were experts in that, trained teachers, and then provided training throughout the year to help them feel comfortable with using the resources. And now that we are back in school, those are 2 platforms that teachers are using inside the classroom. So I think, yes, provide the professional development, but also streamline what are the important tools you want teachers to use.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing points. When you talk about digital equity, it's necessary for, not only lifelong learning, but access to essential services. Working in higher education, coming from, middle and high school classroom, you look at digital equity and you want all students to have that access and be able to effectively use technology to participate in modern society. We're building a competitive workforce, and starting from kindergarten all the way up K-16. Building that pipeline is essential, because you want to have the tools in place for digital equity to be not only successful but essential for ongoing learning.
Absolutely, absolutely, great point. I'm going to turn to Hannah here for a second. Hannah, Code.org has been extremely deliberate about representation in their coding games and their resources that they have in development and out to schools. Thinking about the video games like Carmen Sandiego and some of the ones we've mentioned earlier that you've played or your kids have played, why does representation matter in these games? And kind of following that, how have you seen representation actually play out in these games and from your point of view?
Yeah, I think representation is so important, because I think some of the best games that are out there there's a narrative to them. They're narrative driven, and there's something about seeing yourself in the story of a game that is really powerful and can capture the audience, or capture the player, that is, and bring them into the game, and see that this is a world where they belong. I actually had a second answer, Jonathan, to your initial question about what video game or what character do you most relate to? And I felt like this was kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to mention it now. So my second answer was the Nintendo Me character on the Wii. So the one that you set up as yourself. There aren't a lot of games with a redheaded protagonist. There's a few out there, but there's not a lot. And getting to set up my me character, which took probably longer than it should have, but I had a lot of fun kind of building my character and then getting to play with that character in a lot of different worlds, getting to play tennis with the character, or bring it into golf games or things like that, or all different worlds that are out there. It helped me immerse myself in the game and get interested in what was happening. And then I want to persevere. And right, we know that with games, there's a lot of really great learning and life skills that can happen while you're playing skills. You can learn about hard fun. You can learn about persisting and trying to reach those goals. And games can really help motivate that. And if you're able to see yourself in the game, that's all the better. It brings you into that world. And I think, as we know, the stereotype of who is a gamer, that is out the window, right? We know that folks of all walks of life are now gaming, and it's cool to game, it's fun to game, and we like to see all of our students playing games and see the value of games in the classroom as well. So a lot of the tools that we build at code.org work with that. So we've got a lot of different platforms, like our Angry Birds games, our Plants vs. Zombies, Star Wars, Minecraft, those sorts of things. But the games that we build on our platform, we really want to encourage diverse representation. So it's not just Steve as a character in Minecraft, but we also have Alice as a choice. When we're working with our Star Wars Hour of Code, we have Princess Leia and we have Rey, who are leading the activity. We really want to also focus on underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. We want to make sure that there is that powerful representation in the things that students are able to play, and also then build on our platform, because it doesn't just end with the play. I think the play is a way to capture students. And then we want to empower them to be able to create, which is so powerful with technology, right? It's not just about being consumers, but about being creators. And we want to empower that next generation. So we have our Game Lab tool, where students can build their own games. They can insert themselves as a character in their game. They can have diverse representation in their games. We want to share and celebrate all of that and really bring in that power into the learning experience. So yeah. Jonathan, did I answer your full question? You're muted, Jonathan.
See, and that's so I don't talk. No, I think you're spot on, and I don't think the me character is actually a cop out. I think it's a really great point, because if you think about it, the idea of building yourself in games has really taken off over the last 5 to 6, 7 years, especially. I think back to the very first time I got to play Madden and put myself in a football game. And because there was no way I was ever going to be able to be as good as my character in the game. And the same thing with the me's, being able to experience those things. I think you're spot on. I'm going to actually switch over just to David for 1 second, because I think that this next question kind of ties in together with what we're talking about, which is, we talked about representation really mattering, and, how do you turn that representation? And I think, Hannah, you're getting to this, which is, how do we turn that representation to true engagement, especially in the classroom? So, David, thinking about that, with 95% of our kids playing games, 46% of them being female, a huge amount of students being female, or gamers being female, how can video games be truly used to engage all types of students in the classroom?
That's a great question. As a classroom teacher myself, teaching, every subject across the board, lately STEM and computer science, that was a question that was asked by a lot of our core teachers. How can we integrate not only game design, but various aspects of computer science in the classroom? And I in our various meetings, I would talk to the teachers and I'd say, students can learn how to write a story for a video game. They can create characters. There's lots of writing. You can include all types of language arts curriculum in video game design across the board. And once our teachers started integrating this in various subjects, they were amazed, and the students were amazed. It piqued their interest in reading, it piqued their interest in writing. They were truly able to grasp this is how we can promote this across various subjects. And before we knew it, we had more students that we could handle in our game design clubs, in our computer science classes. And it was truly amazing when you can integrate that learning across the curriculum. It's just, there's so many different ways, and there's just one to start with. Language arts was one way that we started with that, and I'm sure that our panelists will offer some other ways as well.
Absolutely. So, panelists, thinking about this whole topic of really inclusivity and representation, how have you seen it play out, and how have you kind of seen it play out at home, and then what does that translate to the classroom for you all in some of your work?
Thinking about like my own personal experiences growing up, I did not grow up seeing a Black female character in any games that I played. And there's something a little bit dangerous about this, because I didn't see anything wrong with that. That's just the way that it was. And I think that's super dangerous, because it's critical for our kids to be able to see themselves in any situation, in any type of experience. And when they are not represented, we have to be very mindful of what kind of impact that's having on their life. And I know that I want all of the students that I engage with to really truly believe that they can do anything, they can be anyone. And without representation, I think that it's very difficult for them to truly believe that that's a goal that they can achieve.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on, Tracy. I was just thinking about, I think I mentioned I play video games with my daughter who's 8, and, I was playing Roblox with her the other day, and one of the, now can be in a wheelchair in some of the games. And even to the fact of inclusivity of not just ethnic and racial and diversity in that sense, but also inclusive of all types of people coming from different situations. I think it's incredibly important to highlight that. Shayla, any thoughts on that from you? You mentioned Chun-Li earlier, the first female in it. I mean, how did you see this kind of play out as well?
It's interesting. In my own personal experience, I don't even know how I was introduced to gaming. I can't put a finger on it, but I just know that I had my first Nintendo console and was playing Mario, and next it was Sega, Game Boy, and the Wii, and PlayStation 1 and 2. I can go on and on. I just think for me, because I already had an interest in science, it was almost, for me, the gaming experience was unlocking the world of science for me. So it was me thinking about, well, how can I solve this problem? I couldn't get to the next level in Super Mario. So I'm now going through the process of iteration in my brain, right? I'm now thinking about I'm using CT skills. So I'm abstracting the next move to use in order to solve the problem. So for me, it was the problem solving piece that gaming brought alive for me. And I think when I hear that statistic about, was it 46% of females are in gaming? I mean, that's huge compared to where, in the 80s and 90s, where it was like taboo for a girl to play a game. So I think as educators or people doing district level work, it's super important just to frame gaming a bit different, right? So if we frame it around problem solving, if we frame it around creation, if we frame it around that you can, use this as a way to solve some of the world's greatest problems, that will open up a lot more accessibility. And even for kids to dream big about creating games for them to see themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That getting back to that thought of the representation, the being able to see themselves, I think is critical. David, you mentioned Miles Morales. Like, when you saw a Black Spider-Man, like, what impact did that have on you? Did you think it had impact on students who you've taught? What kind of impact does that have?
I think it definitely, it not only piqued student curiosity, but it said, hey, I can be involved in this. This is something that I can do, and it goes back to representation. Representation is key. And anytime you introduce something new, there's always hesitation. But if students can see themselves doing it, they're not going to hesitate. They're going to fail forward. They're going to learn from it. They're going to expand their learning. They're going to be excited. I'm going to be excited with them. We're going to keep expanding our learning. We're going to obviously get recognition for what we're doing, and they might invent something new. There's just so much excitement. I can't contain it. So
yeah,
that's how I look at it. So
absolutely. Kevin, turning to you for a second on this one. You're in Baltimore City Schools, an extremely diverse population in Baltimore. How do you see representation playing out with your students in your schools?
That's massive. It is so important to engage students. And as I believe it was Tracy and Shayla both said, meeting the students where they are. And to do that, they have to see themselves. And it's so important in that, like, I don't want to jump into anything for later, but we don't use the word remediation. And we want to re-engage students. And the way to re-engage them is making it personal. And so I think that's my take on it, is that it's better to be able to see yourself, and you have more ownership in going with that.
Absolutely. And
Go
ahead, Shayla.
Yeah. Also, I know we've been talking about representation and for kids to see themselves in the actual game, but also representation is seeing my teacher or leader playing this game and getting lost in the problem solving piece of this game, right? Like, so modeling, even though we were talking about like actual characters in the game, but just another powerful way is kids seeing you get lost in the gaming, the art of gaming as well.
Absolutely. Hannah, I know that, again, going back to kind of your work with code, you talked a little bit about that representation part, but the engagement, how do you see, do you all at Code see the games where there is a little bit more diversity, or the opportunities where they're able to maybe create their own characters? Do you see more interest from students in that and from schools, or how's that playing out with some of your work?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when there's a wide variety of games that are on offer. You can really capture a wider audience of students where they have that kind of voice and choice opportunity to really pick the things that matter to them. And sometimes it is the representation of them in a game. And sometimes, like Shayla was saying, sometimes it's a different type of game, right? It isn't necessarily a platformer or a one-person game or something like that. Sometimes it's a different type of game. Like one of our most popular things that students build on our platform is part of our Hour of Code dance party tutorial, where students get to program a choreographed dance with all different fun characters on the screens, use all those problem-solving skills, and get to really experience that I made it myself moment. And I think that's really important too, that there's this diverse representation of different types of games that can capture a wide audience. So I think that's important. And then, as you were mentioning as well, being able to insert students into the games themselves. Do they value those? I think one of the best ways to take a look at that is to go and look at our shared games that students have made themselves. And you can see that a lot of times they have built representations of themselves on the screen. I think it really does matter. It just helps them be able to express themselves and demonstrate creativity, and that transfers into an interest in learning. It's not just about, fun is a part of it, and we all love having fun. And I'm a gamer myself. I love playing just for playing sake as well. But in our world, we are interested in increasing access and inclusion to computer science education. So we use games, we use other apps, other things that students can capture their interest, and then they can see themselves as creators. They can go make these things themselves. And I think that ability to not just play, but also make and then share with others is so powerful in order to increase the motivation to do the hard work.
No, you're spot on, Hannah. And one of the things that I have a friend and colleague who's up in Canada who does a lot of work with women in gaming, and she made it she brought up the fact to me that women play games differently, and I say that from the sense of most women actually end up playing story type games versus games that are shooters or quick, easy, And you made a great point in the sense of it's not just representation of seeing yourself in a game, because let's be honest, there's some games where you could have a female or Black or whatever character, but if it's not the type of game that really connects to that person, then it doesn't matter. It's finding like you said, it's finding those games that connect to what they're interested in, not just in having representation in those type of scenarios as well. And then you brought up a great point, Hannah, that's going to lead me to my question with Shayla here, which is that whole next building piece. Shayla, opportunity often brings out skills, ideas, creativity in our students, and who might not have ever shown those characteristics before in the past or in other ways. Video games have brought forth this new digital maker movement. We had the maker movement, and immediately it became a digital maker movement. Which really gives the opportunity for anyone to create in this digital world. How does this movement provide opportunities for both equity and inclusivity in our classrooms and such?
Yeah, so I kind of going off of what I said earlier, my access point to gaming was through this idea of creating a different world, right? And my experience as a child, advanced. I could say I'm a former gamer, but someone told me that once a gamer, always a gamer. But as I started to unlock all the possibilities in gaming, it was an access point for me into STEM. I think about it, into science, technology, engineering, and math, which then led to me majoring in a science, and then now director of over STEM. So I just think about how my experience in gaming, in creation, in digital, I don't even think we had terms like what is it, maker move. We didn't even talk about the maker move when gaming. It was there. We were creating things. But now that we have a name to it, I just think that gaming, video games, and the digital maker movement is a great access point for everyone. It is a low hanging bar for females to feel comfortable in gaming, males to feel comfortable in gaming. I go back to, how do you frame it, right? Framing is super important. And so we frame that gaming is a way to unlock the mysteries of the world, to solve problems, to create, to become consumers of creation. Then that will allow students to feel comfortable playing games and say, oh, I can totally master Minecraft, right? I can totally, I'm going back in the day. I can totally like do Sims very well. Like, and so I just think it just, what's beautiful about the video gaming that we're now talking about is now that we can apply it to school, we can apply it to curriculum in a creative way. And we can train teachers and say, hey, this is a great way to make connections in science that all kids can relate to. They can now create characters. They can now be consumers of what they create. And now we can also teach them skills on problem solving, computational thinking. It's just a beautiful world. And I think that we, because people don't understand what the world of video gaming offers, it just becomes muddy. And I think as leaders and people who are experiencing this, we should educate parents on how it can be a way to unlock mysteries in their kids' thinking.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, I'm wondering if I could.
Yeah, please, Hannah, jump in.
I was just going to jump in here. So before I was a computer science teacher, so around 10 years ago, I was actually an English teacher. And I taught a class where I used MMOs in my classroom to teach literature. So if you're unfamiliar with MMOs, these are massively multiplayer online role-playing games. So opportunities for really this big world building that can happen online. And this is similar to what David was talking earlier about the opportunities to integrate gaming into the curriculum. And I had my students playing these games and then writing about the games. They were building, they were creating their own game guides. They were kind of connected, Jonathan, back to the maker movement. They were physically making things related to the game that was increasing their interest and like building their skills and their problem solving. Shayla, as you were mentioning, it was all tied to the theming of this world that we were living in together, creating together, and experiencing as a classroom. And it was really empowering. This class was for students who were not on the traditional track, who were not going to college or who were not pursuing that track. And they had been put in this class and they thought, what am I going to do? I don't really care about reading. And then they got to play games in my class, and it wasn't a joke. We got to play and read together, make things and build their world, learn about the vocabulary that they were, they didn't think they were strong readers. They were strong readers. They could read what was on the screen because they were interested in it and they cared about it. And I think making those connections is so, so powerful to, unlocking potential in students.
And just imagination can go wild with gaming, right? I think you can create a whole different world, right? And so even the connection piece and thinking about with science is like, how could kids develop a game where it's a utopia, and what does that look like? And how can you manipulate things in this utopian society to solve a problem that's currently on Earth, right? So I just think that video gaming provides so many access points to learning and equity in learning as well.
I would definitely agree. At Legends, we do a game design challenge in the fall and then in the spring, and just watching what students create, what comes out of their imagination. When it comes to something, last year we had one on sustainability, and hundreds of game design opportunities came to be reviewed because there's this passion for just creating now. I look at it as we used to, I don't know about you all, but we used to go in the woods and build forts, and You know, we don't have that, a lot of kids don't have that same opportunity, but they're building forts in a different way now. They're building things and expressing themselves in different ways. I'm going to switch over here to Kevin. Kevin, thinking about these skills that we've been kind of leading into here, you know, the maker movement skills, the 21st century skills, how can using video games in the classroom really help us build these 21st century skills that we know students need? How does this medium provide an equitable learning environment for building these skills?
So first of all, I'm going to say thank you to all my colleagues for pretty much answering this question for me. I'm going to take it in a little bit different lens here. I'm going to do it from a district lens. And that as I believe it was Tracy started off saying, 90 or 95%, or Jonathan, you said 90 to 95% of students between 12 and 17 are playing video games. Right there, that's a sell point. That's an engagement. But then it's that personalization and moving through it. The 21st century skills, we overuse a lot of those words sometimes. However, it's easy to point out with the conversations we've had in where critical thinking, decision-making, that's huge. The risk-taking ability that comes along with it, as well as, depending on the game and what you're doing, the collaboration and communication that can follow. That collaboration and communication may be another part of it that happens in the classroom. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, because to answer that question, I want you to see what City Schools, Baltimore City Schools is doing. We have started a 3-year initiative for accelerated learning. And essentially, what we've seen in using the game base and the videos is that it's engagement and re-engagement of students. We're seeing improved student achievement that goes along with it. And so how are we doing this? Well, and unfortunately, our district, we don't have a diagnostic for science. We don't have the iReady. We don't have ANET, Eureka Math, Zern, all of those things for science. So in accelerated learning, so you get a frame of what it is. When you've got 3 different types of things that you can see when you try to close gaps with students. A retention or remediation, that doesn't work. And if you look at studies from like the new teacher project, it shows remediation absolutely does not work. So how do you do that? And in doing that, you're going to make sure that we are doing on grade level content. We're not doing something from the past, because if you do the past, you're drilling and killing. You're never going to catch up for what they lost, as well as where they're supposed to be now, and you create an even bigger gap. And the research shows that those who use the accelerated learning, doing what's just in time, just what's needed to help fill in those gaps and for upcoming lessons, et cetera, have a 27% increase in their learning over those who have remediation or any of the other types of work that you might try to do with this. So first of all, we use Legends of Learning as a diagnostic. We take some of those key concepts and things that are in specific required courses. We have the students take that. That's a baseline that we use. We get that data, and it helps the teachers in making their instructional decisions, and they're triangulating other data to be able to make the instructional decisions what they need to do. So that's part of that just in time. We also are using it for differentiation. I forgot, I apologize, who had said that or talked about that, but we differentiate by different groups and students within a class. We personalize learning. This year, we have really focused on 100% of our students having a student learning plan, so that we're pulling all the data. We know our students, we know everything that we can about them so that it helps in making our decisions that we do. We use, and we're helping teachers with professional learning with the flipped classroom model so that they can assign some of these things for work at home and engaging students. And what we see in the data is that students not only are doing what's assigned to them, but they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so they do others on their own. So what, without us having to do it, we're engaging them. They're learning the data. They may be filling in their own gaps and extending their knowledge as they go through. And again, it pulls it back to the meeting the students where they are. There's a whole lot more that goes with accelerated learning that, you know, you should have to use the high quality instructional materials. You have to have a focus on professional learning to go with it. Diagnostics, again, that's where we use for K-8, the Legends of Learning. But it's really personalizing personalizing the learning so that we know where students are and we're filling in those gaps as we go.
That's great, Kevin. And you know that I think you're really spot on. You know, the filling in those gaps and doing it in a way that's engaging to students, that they actually want to, because let's be honest, most kids know when they're being remediated. You know, they know what last year's material looks like. But if they're engaging in a game and it's embedded within there, you know, students are more likely to be engaged with it and not care what the material is, because they just usually want to win or beat the game. So
yeah, one other statistic that I want to throw in there, and I don't want to get heavy into it, but the New Teacher Project actually showed where students who were remediated struggled at least 10% more than students who did accelerated learning. They struggle. That productive struggle becomes more than a productive struggle when you're trying to fill in so much of a gap rather than focusing on what's grade appropriate. What do they need to know right now to close those gaps?
absolutely. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on this? Okay, well, we've had a really good discussion thus far, and I know we have some attendees here. And I've asked my fair share of questions. So now I want to turn to the audience here. I know we have some great participants. If you have any questions for the panelists, please share them in the chat, share them in the Q&A area. And we'd love to answer them. We have time probably for 1 or 2 questions max. Oh, there we go. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask the panelists one more question, kind of, and we'll see what comes in here. You know, there's this whole idea of the babysitter effect, I call it. You know, and it happened often with when film strips came out, and then laser discs, and then VHS and DVDs, and watching movies in classrooms. You know, how do we help someone understand the benefits of video games in the classroom when they just see it as potentially that teachers are just going to use it to babysit their students? How do you kind of debunk that, if you will?
Honestly, I think that there are a lot of things that can be a babysitter. I'm a former science teacher, and you think about certain hands-on investigations or STEM engineer design challenges. Those things can just be fun activities if the teacher isn't facilitating it effectively. And I think that connection needs to be made when we're talking about utilizing video games and gaming in the classroom. It's really imperative that the teacher is engaged with the students. So you're not just putting them on to play and then, you know, checking your email. You're circulating the classroom, you're asking questions, you are really making connections to what they're doing in the game, either with content, their outside life. It can't be a passive thing. And if the teachers are truly engaged, that's a tool that can really move students forward.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back to that in 1 second, because we do have a great question from our audience here. And that question is, what is the best approach to teacher buy-in so that they don't feel that they are losing class time by using game-based learning?
I would say that if you use a centers approach like they use in elementary, so that you have students going through different centers and what they can do, or different choices, the anchor activities, et cetera, like that, so that you can focus on the students that need the more support in the classroom. And putting these on to be done at home is huge for those who have those opportunities, because that takes that pressure off of it, what instructional time you have in the class. You take that pressure off when you are able to do those things at home.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. We have another question here. It's a longer one, so just bear with me for a second. We have a gentleman, Matthew, who says, our district is currently exploring and expanding on esports and how we can provide this for all students. In preliminary discussions, it seems that there are several large organizations leading the discussion, but many of them develop schedules that inevitably push students outside of the school environments for competitions, and I'm assuming outside of the school day as well. This naturally creates a larger equity issue. Obviously, public education would like to also be in this field, but any advice on how to tackle this very large and expensive endeavor with equity in mind?
Hey, I can suggest one way is to look at the various grant funded opportunities that are available throughout your district. We participated in the Girls Who Game grant with Dell, wonderful, amazing program for students to get, introduced into gaming and esports. So, start there, look at the funding opportunities and see how you can expand within your district, and provide opportunities that may not otherwise be available.
I can add on, I'm not talking about it in the gaming sense, but we did something similar with robotics here at KIPP NYC. So to add on to what David said, grant writing, but also start small. So start with a group of students, get parent buy-in, and just move that way to see how it works with a group of students, and then expand. But I think getting money is super important. Piloting with a group of students or a school, and then parent involvement is super important, because that's what drives the program.
To add to Shayla on that is, it's easy to say partnerships, but truly work with your experts in the area that are around you, because a lot of the businesses are eager. Like, granted, we have Johns Hopkins right here. They help us with all of our VEX robotics and, all of those pieces of it. But we have other corporations of engineers and some of the others that love coming in to help and work with students in all of those areas.
And I just wanted to share that I think it's also important to communicate with outside organizations. Sometimes they don't recognize how their scheduling in this example can produce some inequity. So, sharing your concerns with them and asking for them to possibly, have alternate schedules, things like that. I feel like a lot of corporations are willing to do that, but you just have to make them aware of the situations that they're putting you in. And oftentimes they're willing to help.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I can add is that, not every one of our students can participate, or schools can participate in robotics competition. So we have developed a robotics competition within our district or within our school. So if students aren't able to participate because of funding, whatever, but you can also provide that similar experience in the school day. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure administrators will love that to happen.
So I think we have time for one more question here. We have one from Tara. That's, what opportunities are there for getting non-English speakers into gaming? I'll start and then I'll pass it over to the group here. One, especially to Hannah, because I'm sure that you have some thoughts on this. But one I will say is that most games, especially story games, I'm thinking up to David to the Miles Morales Spider-Man game, do have Spanish language tracks or alternate language tracks as well. So that's definitely one way. Many programs like Legends also has Spanish as an opportunity to play the games in Spanish. So it provides other opportunities. Hannah, from Code's perspective, how have you guys kind of attacked that issue, if you will, of multiple languages?
Sure. So our computer science fundamentals curriculum, which is our K-5 curriculum, is translated into many, many languages. Our hour of code tutorial activities, we have over 50 languages for each of those activities. And we've heard some amazing testimonies from teachers who have done things like run an activity night, an hour of code night or something like that, where they encourage the students and the parents to come together and play games together. And they've seen the power of a parent who doesn't speak English being able to sit down with the student and be able to do the activity in their own language, and how empowering that is, that you can have that in a classroom where one student is sitting down and doing it in Arabic, and another student is sitting right next to them and they're doing it in Spanish, and they're both able to have success and have that really powerful moment of realizing this is for me. I can do this, and there's just a lot of really great activities that you were mentioning, Jonathan, that are translatable, that are translated in a way to really connect with students, especially for students who are maybe coming into the classroom mid-year. Maybe it's a family that it's an immigrant family, bringing them in. Games are a great way to connect with students, and for a student to see that they can sit down with the teacher knows what's happening on their side, the student gets to see it in their own language, and it's a way of just communicating and building that bridge, because I do think games can really build bridges between different population groups, and can just show our love of play, our love of story, our love of design. And it's a really powerful opportunity to explore that. So I definitely encourage everyone to play around with all the different language settings and see what you can make.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna cut our panelists off there for now, as we're hitting the top of the hour. And as we continue to look to support students, teachers, and our communities during this school year, these ideas that are kind of shared today and the lessons learned from our panelists, from collaborating with colleagues, can really help provide some guidance in addressing equity and inclusivity in our own communities. We encourage you to reach out to our panelists with any additional questions, and connect to Legends of Learning team about how we can help provide equitable solutions for engaging your students as they grow their content understanding in your classroom, in the school, and in your district. I'd like to take a moment and just say thank you again to our panelists. This is an incredible discussion and a very important discussion, and truly appreciate your time today. And I want to our viewers, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we truly do hope that you have a great rest of your week. Thank you all.